No,
I-
at Evergreen.
I was
Off the
born in my
highway.
break,
The only
I
way
ever
that
used
they're-
it, so.
Because you guys, I mean.
Roger,
I think
I was
they
born
can
there, he goes,
with a
you can
truck,
use it
and
once,
that's
but it
gonna
may
be
only work once.
With UPS and everything comes down there.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to,
so
we have one conversation at a time, so,
That's-
but 1 second here, we had
That's
a,
the question.
but 1 second here. Was there, over here, Ellen, did you have
Well,
something?
I guess if the practical effect is that we're going to potentially make it impossible for a business to get their deliveries, then extending it doesn't work.
But if we did it at the, say right at the roundabout, and what I would propose is at the bottom of the hill at Ridge Run, and then the top of the hill at Evergreen, so it's just, your only thing you're gonna have on the sign that you're gonna say that at Lindell, there's no trucks allowed. Ahead, I guess, I don't know how you would do the sign.
Yeah, we're getting,
Let's classify a truck, because a
UPS.
UPS is a truck. Y'all still need your Amazons and all of that delivered to your streets? So can you do it to where it's a weight restriction, that there's no trucks over
GBW.
whatever a UPS
we,
truck is?
we don't want the truck that Tom sent us.
No,
to be
so
driving
whatever
up and
weight
down
that
that.
is, we need to figure that out and make that and higher, because
Well, the question
to
would be,
not get your Amazon, that's
Like
not gonna be a
Tom,
pretty day.
what do you guys, do you guys like having a UPS truck coming up that
Oh,
street?
so it's fun, it was a semi, there's been semis, see, the problem is when you Google GPS, that's the truck routes they
Yeah.
take, the semis, so that was a semi. So, it happens once a week, well, you know, once every 2 weeks, a semi comes up the street, they come off 34, and a lot of times the interstate's closed from accidents, so they just Google how to get through Seward, and it.
So are you guys
takes
okay with a UPS but no semi?
Right, I think that's what we're looking for, is semis for sure.
No inking with it?
Yeah, 18.
Bob, what did you have?
I was gonna say you could put deliveries only, a sign that says deliveries only, no through truck traffic, something of that nature.
Right?
There is significant overlap between large pickup trucks and delivery trucks. And so it's not as easy as just declaring one weight limit. So so one way they do it is accept local deliveries, which could apply to the large common carriers. Actually, Sarah did call the common carrier from that photograph, and they actually had made a local delivery on Plum Creek Lane at the bottom of the hill and drove out that way in this particular instance. We have seen trucks that have gone all the way through, so. But it is, the other thing too is Lindell is in design. So Lindell, once finished, can probably take a truck.
But once we get there, we can change.
Just keep in mind
Yeah.
that there's a lot of things in play,
Right.
I guess.
Well, I mean, that's something we could look at later down the road once it's done.
Keep in mind, we're just bringing you a
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't have to have all the details worked out tonight,
Yeah.
and one of
Yes,
it
we
might
do.
be, one of it might be, is maybe you just don't want them coming off the highway at all, off of 34, and maybe it's simpler, cause that way they don't worry about turning around. But again, we can provide also different drafts of a resolution that may have different sign points.
Yeah.
So I don't wanna get too bogged down in the weeds right now, but we can definitely, get you something to consider the next.
I don't wanna upset Roger Littner because they have semis, trucks coming there all the
Sure,
time. so
but I
that-
think to Mike's point, I think it's the local delivery
Yeah.
exception that's going to, it may cause some frustration, cause you may get a big vehicle going down there, but I don't know how you prevent, if they're doing a true local delivery, I don't know how you, I mean, you're just gonna make other people mad if they can't get, large appliances or whatever that may be, if
Yeah,
it's,
like in Nebraska.
you know, landscaping, if it's landscaping materials, or I don't know what might be on the back of the trailer.
So, my next
Drywall.
question,
Right.
can we pursue with the resolution we've got and then come back and make a determination where to place the signs later?
Well, what we'd do is we would bring your resolution at the next meeting that would have different points. If you can agree on one of those, then you can move forward with the resolution. If you can't agree, then we would want direction on where you would want those signs. You just wouldn't take action on the resolution. You would just direct us to, you know, modify it in some way or do additional research and come back with options. So, this is not the end all be all
Yeah,
tonight.
no,
But it's the start of the conversation and
We
the
need
solution.
to, yeah, keep it going.
Discuss.
So in this, number 8 is also kind of a high priority as far as adding a north-south road, which is basically behind Legner and Linders to the cross
we talking about the motion or?
Yeah, we just have this
Yeah,
motion
we
right
got a
now.
motion.
So we have, the motion was made by John, seconded by Jessica. So so I'm having discussion on that motion specifically. Did you have something else?
Yeah, so to this motion of no truck parking is restricted to specific areas that are to be determined on East Seward Street.
Mhm.
Nothing's to say that they go another block and turn down East Jackson and come on Lindell, as Mike pointed out, it's gonna get paid. What's the difference between using East Seward Street and going down Jackson by a daycare and coming around a sharp turn for a trailer rather than taking a straight shot down East Seward? I don't see any,
My understanding, and I could be wrong here, I thought they were using this because it's designated as a collector,
And GPS is
GPS
putting
is
them
and
there.
GPS is sending them there.
right, so taking that away, there's no guarantee that, okay, now we're finding another route. We're going here, we expect to turn right on East Seward Street, that's no longer there. What's the next logical move? You're going up another block and you can just come around and then take a right on Lindell and then get back on East Seward Street bypassing a single block.
But we
Like,
could,
and so, like, my point is that we're doing this necessarily at a block point, but it's gonna have other unintentional consequences when we do this. The next logical one is if they're used to it, they're gonna find a close route at that point. The next logical option is you're going downtown and then back to 34, or you're going up a block, coming around Jackson and Lindell, which is not a navigable turn for a trailer at that point. UPS, FedEx, yes, but those are gonna be local deliveries, they're gonna get there anyway. I don't see any benefit of having no parking at this point because there's gonna be alternative routes at that point.
we're not talking about.
We're not-
parking.
I mean, sorry,
Truck.
no,
I was like,
no
wait, I'm
trucks,
confused.
no trucks.
The other
That
thing
escalated
is,
quickly.
what we can
Yeah.
do, we can start with this, and we can always add another street.
Well, and to Carl's point, if you're concerned about
Yeah.
where they would go off of Columbia, you could do the same thing, no
Correct.
trucks allowed on Jackson
Right.
to the east. And then on the other end, you can just go farther down.
Right.
But you just wanna make sure you don't get them in a situation where the truck gets stuck,
Right.
because they
Right.
can't turn around.
Right.
And so that's why maybe you even wanna go all the way back to Highway 34, whether it's off Evergreen or East Seward Street, just so that they bypass the entire neighborhood and come in traditionally on Highway 34, assuming they're coming from the east.
Now, on that
So
sign
you
though, can we
technically
put,
eliminate all of this by
Yeah.
taking the corner.
but on that sign, say you come right off 34 on the Evergreen, can
Mhm.
you put the sign there saying when you get to Lindell, no trucks allowed or no semis?
Typically, you wanna have the action be at where the sign is, otherwise you're expecting them to, for one, be familiar where all the streets are and what the names are, and you're asking an awful lot, I think sometimes you don't wanna confuse people either.
Yeah, cause you'd want it at the top of Evergreen to the north, so they could make the turn and go down East Seward, go on out and about to the 34 then.
Right, which
They can make
makes,
the turn.
which makes sense, like
Yeah.
similar to dead-end street,
Right.
you put it at that intersection
Right.
rather than at the dead end itself.
Right. That would probably be the
No
most
outlet.
But
sensitive.
Carl has a good point about the area around the hospital,
Mhm.
those turns are not
Mhm.
fit for a truck. You know, sometimes it's dicey for a car to get in and out, and there's several other cars in the vicinity, so I don't wanna see us do anything that's going to jeopardize access to and from the clinic and or the hospital. So that's something to think about, doing both, maybe instead of just.
Well, so is this something that we have any traffic data on specifically, like the truck aspects? We don't.
Not truck specific, we just have traffic counts.
Mike? you have a-
Anecdotal evidence from Matsky.
Yeah, I know, Tom's gonna fix it.
Not every day, but a couple times a week.
Especially when the interstate's shut down from accidents, that's
Mm.
more
So wouldn't it
frequently
just be
lately.
easier to get rid of the?
Hang on a second, Don, you wanna finish your thought?
It seems more frequently lately with all the accidents on I-80, they shut them, they ride them around off Matsky and coming down. And you'll get occasionally a semi, and that's what I think should be.
And
Obviously,
ultimately,
an 18-wheeler.
maybe that you're correct then, that what you guys are thinking is you need to put them clear down on Evergreen and East Seward.
At the top of the hill of Evergreen
No,
and.
no, no, no.
No?
Right off of
Off the
34,
highway.
34.
to keep them staying on 34 through town.
Mhm.
Mike, did you have a?
Wait, hang on, Alyssa had something first.
Well, my thought is then why don't we just focus on getting back to taking the collective off of that street, cause it's mostly the GPS that's sending those trucks that direction. That if it's like, where are we gonna put this no truck delivery, blah, 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 isn't it easier to just take that collective?
We're still
But
trying
we
to
can't do
understand
that
that.
right away. Yeah, we can't do it right away.
We're trying to understand that process.
And I'm not sure that we're making kind of an assumption and a jump on what GPS and how it works.
Right.
The one that's the problem is probably the truck traffic that's coming out of downtown. I don't wanna throw Hughes Brothers under the bus, but any of that traffic that's just some reason coming eastbound on East Seward somewhere in the process.
Right.
Because we have all the food vendors that have to stop in the middle of East Seward on Highway 34 or Highway 15 on 5th Street where they're unloading for our downtown restaurants. They're kind of in weird spots and then they just kind of go. Once they get going on East Seward, past downtown, everything's a bad choice at that point.
Yeah.
They're all bad choices. They're hard turns. They're not easy. So we may have to put a sign ahead somewhere along East Seward
Like by the park.
to try and get them off. Again, we also pull truck traffic onto Highway 34 at 2nd Street, Bob? So maybe it's diverting the ones on East Seward coming east, saying at East Seward they need to turn on 2nd Street and get back to 34 because we're also bringing truck traffic up from our carrier down there on South 2nd Street. And that's the point to try and get them going and not at North Columbia, because you get a semi at North Columbia,
It's a nightmare.
I don't even know what's gonna happen. And we don't want them driving down East Seward.
The MRI machine guy, he's awesome. He knows
I don't know
about
where
that
he's going half the time, because he's all over town
He
with that
knows.
thing.
Go
He
crest a
won't
lot of
mess
times,
around.
they'll come down.
He can.
And so, I think that's probably our biggest one. If you're coming in, if we can deflect them off of Evergreen and East Seward, we're probably fine. But once they kind of get mixed into downtown, and they just start coming east, well, the easiest way to go with the giant semi-trailer is just keep going straight
So,
until it forces you to do something.
my next question would be, cause I don't wanna have Roger upset with this because he brings semis in there because of his painting business. Can we do permit, say something there that,
We need to talk to law enforcement.
Yeah.
And more specifically with chief and how they would enforce that, cause it's just gonna be PD enforcing it.
Right.
So we just need to understand the enforcement mechanism.
We can bring that resolution and the administration will work out some of those details between now and that.
And
the
between
next
now and then,
meeting.
if we don't like it, we don't have to vote for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of residents that will take photos of those semis for us, so we can call them and chase them down, like we did today. And we figure out where they're coming from and where they're going. Again, I don't know what to do about somebody that's getting a delivery down on Plum Creek Lane, that seems reasonable. But somebody that's just using it for a round, a way to get through town after they delivered something downtown, that's not appropriate.
so, do we need to amend the motion to say the signs need to be placed?
No,
Okay.
I would, let's deal with all of that when the actual resolution comes and
So,
we can.
are we only then considering Seward, we can't consider any other streets in this resolution?
You can do whatever you like,
Yeah.
you're the council.
John has the original motion, so if you'd like him to amend it, you can just make your suggestion.
Jackson?
To include Jackson? I'll amend the motion to, add Jackson.
Can you second that?
I will.
Okay.
But I would like to hear from Mike, because he had something to say.
So we,
Better be profound, Mike.
so as part of our traffic counting, we've counted for 3 weeks, we're counting for a 4th week on the Plum Creek Bridge. Bob's crew's done a great job. 5 2-hour periods, he had somebody out there hand counting every motion through the intersection of East Seward and Lindell. And so I asked them about the truck traffic, and they said probably saw 1 truck in that entire 10-hour period of time. Thomas Mansky, if I could speak for you, said it was a couple times a week that you see a truck typically. So
Depending on the interstate.
the idea is that the amount of traffic, we are measuring 850 to 870 cars a day on East Seward. Truck traffic is a tiny portion of that. Not that it's not important, I just wanna put it in scale and perspective.
No, but I also think, just as part of the next conversation, we're wanting to also think about trucks going down it if there's heavy construction.
Correct, and that's typically a conversation, especially with the concrete trucks, with the construction project manager. We manage that well on Waverly, so if you have somebody active that asks them every day, okay, where's the haul in and the haul out? You can kind of work that out, but that definitely has to happen during that construction.
And we utilize counters, so Tom doesn't just go up and back and up and back, up and back, up and back.
Our construction-
One more anecdotal item that might help in your decision is that the roundabout was designed for trucks. They can make the loop. What you have are soft mountable curbs, they call them, and what looks like sidewalk adjacent to the curb is actually a truck apron, and it's not designed for people to walk. So they could swing around there and head back out.
Okay.
Are construction trucks delivering concrete to a construction site considered a local delivery?
Potentially, but that's where the communication with the project manager, as far as, the development that we're discussing later tonight, I assume they're gonna come off the highway for the most part, and I don't see them coming down East Seward Street for the most part. Again, that conversation will have to happen to make sure we're on the same page. As far as additional, I guess, building maybe in Ridge Run or future, again, that's gonna be a conversation with the project manager to communicate what expectations are. And then and then involve law enforcement to verify that it's being adhered to.
So we could do like permit required, and that way the contractor
I
would
wouldn't
know.
get into all that, but,
Yeah, I mean,
No,
but for
We
these
don't wanna be
purposes,
permitting, that's
you
gonna get
could do
too.
it to where, Tim, and I'm not trying to add something more onto your case, but when somebody comes for a building permit
Mhm.
in that area or this new development per se, you can add something, a slip onto that permit that says truck traffic is not allowed to go up east, to make that communication, to hand that to the owner that says, you need to make sure that your building people are aware of the fact that there's no truck traffic beyond this point.
I just wanna call the question.
well, yeah, whatever, but I wanna make sure everyone was finishing your thoughts. You good? Okay. If we're good, then we're gonna go ahead and, we have a motion and a second. I may regret this, if there's no further discussion. Please register your votes. Please display the vote.
Voting in favor, Wilkie and Beck, Camper, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. Voting against Miller, 7-1.
Alright, are there any other items, I assume on the short term, that you want us to consider in the near future? Yes,
I just,
John?
to get it into perspective, because we had this discussion when we were at the Civic Center, but can you tell everybody what the counts were on that road have been, and also tell them what a collector street is supposed to hold?
So I don't have all the data processed, we try to collect data over a 3-week period of time, and we have at least four, a sample size of 4 for each 2-hour period of time. It's gonna take some time, and that'll be forthcoming. Quickly, we're seeing on East Seward, the busiest 2-hour period, 6:30, 8:30 in the morning, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., roughly 150 cars in that 2-hour period of time, so 2 a minute, something like that. For the course of the whole day, the range of 850 to 880 in that range. And of course on Columbia, we're seeing 4,700 to 5,100 north and south on Columbia. And so and of course the two join up, and so there's a little bit of traffic that then goes up East Seward and onto Columbia and vice versa. So we haven't processed all that data, but hopefully it gives you a general idea. But Columbia is 5 times. And then to your other question, the Collector Street, typically the maximum average daily trips would be 1,000 to 2,500 for a collector. And so we're a little bit under the low end of that daily maximum right now.
Carl, did you have something?
Let's say just one thing on this topic necessarily. I would like to see if we can explore that option of rerouting trucks to Highway 34 to 2nd Street off of Seward Street traveling east, rather than going all the way to North Columbia, because I think that would be a good intersection to get back on the highway at that point.
Like a little sign that says trucks
Right.
turn here.
Right.
We'll get you, I think it's gonna be a combination, like sitting here again, we're just kind of threw 1,000 things against the wall over the last 30 days, and so we haven't had a long period to just focus in on one. I think you'll have a hybrid, where we may have areas that are designated specifically no truck, and wider out is just delivery only, and a little bit more broad, but I think there'll be a multifaceted approach as will help deal with it, but also give truck drivers something reasonable to work with, so.
So Greg, on the longer term ones, do you need any direction from us regarding the 1 and 6 year plan? I mean, that's, or do we just expect that you're gonna be bringing this up and we can hone in on like option 5 or 10 or 14, whatever
During
they were?
the 1 and 6 and the budget conversation.
I think we need to at least start discussing some of these sooner, because like I said, you're not gonna make people happy, no matter which one you pick. So I'd like to get through some of that and get some focus.
Can we just count on you to be putting that on the agenda?
Or do
Or
you need
do you want-
do you need a motion for us to put that on the agenda going forward? For like a meeting, you know, a month?
Based on what I've seen here and the information we have back, it seems like for the temporary time, 6, 7, and 8 weren't terribly popular. I think the other thing that's gonna happen is that I'm gonna schedule those meetings for you guys to go meet with your friends at the county. And you can have that discussion, cause that's gonna give us a lot of perspective. If we're really honed in on Bluff Road and 252nd, you need to stay within the tight confines of this, and then have a discussion how you get through to Waverly Road. And then if you're gonna look at more expansive stuff where they are, then that changes the dichotomy. But I think we're gonna, for now, not put any more effort through on the low-lying fruit and push forward on what was identified as priorities. I think something like 9, is just something that if it, should it ever develop out, that's the way that roadway needs to go, that's why it's identified there. So that will probably be dropped as a alternative, and 12 would be the same as you see them now.
Right.
And so we're gonna focus in on all the rest. The other one would be 16, if you still want that to be considered, but I think for what we heard from NDOT, that's not terribly popular, and I think there was also not a whole lot of.
Well,
Well,
6,
that would mess up the plat that we're talking about.
Yes, that's the whole, I don't wanna,
and 6.
we need to focus in ultimately on what is best in the interest of moving traffic, and ultimately, that's a very small scale one that's not gonna solve your north-south, North Columbia issue.
So for tonight, from right now, you don't need anything else from us on this?
Nope, just understand that that's my approach. I'm basically gonna cut off the low-lying fruit that nobody seemed to be interested in,
Okay.
and then pursue. We need to have, for instance, 18 came late in the process, and so we need to have more detailed discussions with Concordia about what that looks like. Also, the detailed discussion, you guys have the prices in front of you for some of this, and that project, you could build 2 or 3 of the other projects.
$6 million almost.
Jessica, did you wanna add something?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, if you could, 2 things, take off the load, like, condense the list,
Mhm.
and then with the condensed list, facilitate that conversation with the county and the both planning groups. Probably for late spring, before we get too far into the budget, or
Yeah,
no?
probably May, June.
Yeah. That would be the only thing I would suggest.
So if I just for tonight's meeting, is there anything on the short term that you still would want us to pursue in the meantime, Alyssa?
I just have a question. So, to be proactive, annexation, is there a time frame that when you annex an area that you as the city are responsible to provide utilities? Or is that your path of growth? Do you understand my question?
We should have a fully executed plan to fully service whatever we're annexing.
And what's the timeline on that though?
Immediate. So right now, if you approve the plat that we're talking about includes the full contractual obligations in the subdivision improvement agreement to extend utilities throughout and touch all of it.
And
I
then
have to have that plan to touch all of it.
it's just a plan though, it's not immediate action of implementation
Guaranteed by the
30
people
days
that own the
past
property.
whatever. I just am wondering if it's smart to proactively look at our growth and start to move into that annexation of areas that we can develop into so that we don't have these kind of problems in the future.
There'll be, discussions of annexation in relation to some of these alternatives. That will be part of what we'll bring to you as we go through, because some of these will require, potentially, if we don't have partnering dollars, that you'll have to annex them to be able to build on them, or interlocal agreements. The other one's interlocal though. I mean, that's what we're doing here with East Seward Street tonight, is we're doing an interlocal, and the county is helping assist us in preparing some of these roadways to get them ready to go with hard surface or concrete, storm sewer, whatever it may be. And so that's the other option. That's why you gotta have this conversation with the county, because I'm just throwing this out there, I'm not saying that's one, but for instance, if you did 10, the city builds road 10, well, you still need to have a safe roadway in back to the bridge on Hillcrest. That's a county road. Well, maybe the county says, well, we'll put that in for you from 10 to 3. That's it though. And that's our portion of helping assist you with this project, but we're not going past 10 right now. These are all the elements that will be involved in negotiating this back and forth and trying to be proactive. What I will tell you is we need to be proactive. Some of these roads have existed on plans since the 70s as major projects, just like I chastised the county at the beginning of this for not doing theirs. For decades and decades and decades, we just haven't got around to doing some of these, and you will alleviate a lot of issues. Either you plan for them and commit to the plan you made, which our comp plan has some of these roads in them now that we're looking at right here. You commit to them and then you follow through with them and you start doing the essential planning, right-of-way acquisition or otherwise, to start laying the foundation to do those in the future.
So how do we get better at that? I know it takes, I mean, it's a whole year to get design and everything like that. It's a whole nother year to get, there's time that it takes. But how can we properly keep that going so that we're not just checking off a list that says, oh, we've got a plan, but we're not implementing it, so that we don't have to get to this stage again?
Well,
Like,
a lot of
how do
our-
we keep that going?
A lot of these plans that are outside of city limits aren't really plans we can implement until we've annexed and taken over that particular road or that property. So when you talk about these big picture items, these 50-year lookouts or 100-year lookouts, you know, where you're really at the mercy of the county and how quickly do they want to, you know, work on that. I mean, they've known about East Seward Street for as long as we have, and they had no interest at the time to finish, you know, paving it like we paved up to the city limits. But that's just a matter of policy. I mean, you know, and that's, you know, for people that care, they need to probably go to some of those county meetings and express their concerns, or reach out to their commissioners and express their concerns or their interests, because, you know, you know, the other issue you have is that we don't control the property. So whenever, we don't know where the next subdivision is going to be until the property owner says we're going to develop the subdivision. I've said before, you know, when I first became mayor, I was told that this Jones property was gonna be developed any day now, and that was 12 years ago. You know, so you just don't know when that's gonna happen, so we can do as much preparation we can, but we also don't wanna spend a lot of infrastructure by prioritizing an area that then ends up not being developed, and now we're behind developing another area that ends up being developed next. So, you know, it's hard to predict the future, but you know, the best we can is to have these plans, but I think more importantly, we need to probably work closer with the county and express where we would like them to prioritize. And, you know, this an example of Greg going and Mike going to their 1 and 6 plan meeting and say, hey, you know, on the east side of town, this would be, you know, an ideal option, or at least one to consider. Did that answer your question? Okay. So I guess for tonight, right now, before we belabor this point more, for this item, are there any other items or proposals that you would like us to pursue, either before the next meeting or before a future meeting? Otherwise, we'll move on to the preliminary plat. So you're good?
I just wanna say thanks, Mike, Greg, Bob, and everybody. Good work.
Okay, so with that, we will move on. Are we good, Greg? Okay, we'll move on to item number 3. This is a preliminary plat of Prairie View Edition. Tim or Greg, did you wanna kick us off?
We have we had the public hearing last time, we made all the presentations, discussed all the intricacies, and had the developer here with us. We do have engineers on hand for the developer. The developer was not able to be here because there was another commitment this night for a prior obligation. But all the technical questions, really this one comes down to, are there any technical questions? I'm not saying you have to vote or do anything on that, but we can still answer technical questions. Otherwise, it kind of is what it is, and it meets all our standards for what we would look for in regards to its zoning, designations for parkland, and size and quantity. Is there any update? It's probably in a holding pattern on this one, but in regards to the detention cell? Nothing specific has moved since last time? Nope, okay. So,
I think my only one question is it Primrose Drive? Is the upper left corner of that? In a development like that, do you have to have two streets that exit? Can we eliminate that entrance and exit and only use the goldenrod lane as that entrance into the development off of East Seward Street?
I don't wanna speak for the developer, but I probably can guess on this one. It's due to the phasing. They need Primrose. One, you just need more circulations and ins and outs, but the phasing and having Primrose available, it will also allow to alleviate, so not all of the traffic is going down Willow and Evergreen. It gives immediately under the first phase a two-way approach to getting in and out of the development, which is one of our requests. If you have your sheets here on their third sheet, Primrose and Willow are both access points immediately into the first phase, so.
Don't we generally like two ins and outs for safety purposes?
Yes,
Well,
I mean,
yes.
there's a litany of reasons. The other one is sort of semi-construction related. For the deep level grading and stuff, we're hoping they'll utilize East Seward out closer to Highway 34 and kind of rip that up before we rip it up and get as much use out of it while it's in the state it's in now. And so we also want to try and direct some of the larger scale traffic for as long as we can up that way until we get in there. Our roadway will be, thick enough to handle that, but we want to try and alleviate as much for the impact on Willow because it's just so dense over there in Valley View. But once the houses start coming in, you don't have head-on construction traffic going with residential traffic. They can kind of direct those two different directions.
But yes,
So-
you do typically want two
I
egresses
was thinking
for,
for
well,
fire
and for first respond, yes.
Yeah.
And it's in the Unified Land Development
Yeah.
Ordinance as well.
Technically, you could probably get away with not doing it here because you know the next phase and the phase after that would have additional egresses, but it makes sense for this to have it in the initial first phase. Is that fair? I don't wanna speak for you, but,
No, you're correct.
alright. So, any other questions?
There was no, remediation that was needed to be done with drainage or anything, was there? I can't remember from last time. So there hasn't been any changes on that?
No changes.
Yeah,
You're all okay with the way that's all gonna go?
The only
Yeah.
change was the, when we say Valley View, or made when we say determination to let them take control of it.
Right.
So that,
We would ultimately, as the city, want to see that go through. Because the design that they have, ultimately, if that whole agreement is approved, is a unified detention cell
Right.
system that alleviates a lot of problems.
And
And
you
so
can't-
we're in favor of that.
and he can't put any more water than what's already coming down. Yes, it's slow.
Yeah, I understand that. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if there was any directive that that you requested or anything between the last time we talked and now. So there was no changes on that.
No change.
Is there any discussion? I entertain a motion.
Make motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wolfkin, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Thank you, guys. Item number 4, creation of the utilities locator position. Greg?
We kind of forewarned you of this was gonna be coming, a few months back. with the announcement that Allo is gonna be coming to the city of Seward and installing their system throughout, there were some discussions about partnering with some of our current fiber optic offerings to kind of partner and then not have to implement in certain areas of town, but ultimately they've signaled to us that they're gonna lay out their system entirely through the whole city. So some of that will be aerial in the older sections of town. Some of it in the older sections of town, due to the amount of pole attachments already there, they may still go underground. And so, but they are gonna implement starting this month, if all permitting goes through. And so we've been working with them in locating a central hub. It's where everything kind of comes in and then communicates out. And then they have 5 TEM ponds,
Yes, 5.
which are kind of smaller hubs
2
throughout.
tentative ones.
And so we're working through kind of locations of those facilities with them. They're gonna start out initially with just one underground boring contractor. And so we need to be able to keep ahead of that one. And I don't think long-term with our construction schedules and projects living ahead that we can do that. Our hope is to try to alleviate some of the pressure that this is gonna put on water and wastewater, electric, and street, because we will have to identify all of those items, street being a storm sewer system. And so if we can find an experienced person that's out there that can do, likely you're not gonna find somebody that can do all of it, because electric is kind of a technical expertise, but if they have background in it, that would be great. But find somebody that can do one, and our hope is to train up in the other field and get them off and running right away, just to kind of alleviate some of the pressure. This could last a year to 2 for this position, and our hope is in that year to 2 that we're most likely gonna need to absorb another position in one of the utilities, and that this person could have the offering to have their foot in the door to be absorbed into one of those positions. But we'll be upfront with them.
Would they
that
be in the electric department or just?
We don't, what we designed it is based on their background. If they come in and they go, I have 10 years locating water and wastewater, we may align them with water and wastewater, and then we may just say electric, you're gonna have to locate your own, but we have somebody to do water. They come and say I can do electric, then we may place them in electric. So it's really based on their expertise. You know, we might pull somebody that's been locating cable and gas or something like that, so that's kind of different in and of itself. And so we're gonna work with what we got. We all know what the labor market's like right now, and so our hope is just to find somebody with some minimal level of experience in this. We have a very competitive offering. Derek did a great job with researching positions for USIC. You see them around all the time doing locates, and also some other locate positions that he found for other utilities and things like that. So I think the wage line that's included in this is very competitive and matches what some of our current employees do. So again, it has a pretty big one, because if you get into electrical, that's more technical, a lot more safety issues and things like that, if they have to light up a line and try to identify where it's at and stuff like that. So we'll gauge them appropriately, but also knowing that's a temporary position potentially, and so we're gonna recruit hard and have a competitive wage so that we can not, you know, shelve this all on the back of our utility mainline workers.
I'm assuming the budget can handle it.
We think we'll be able to absorb it between the 3,
Okay.
so we'll spread it out across the general fund and the utility funds and try to just soften that. Usually we have enough balance in our budgets, but I don't think it will push it to the point we have to amend the budget at the end of the year.
Any questions or comments, or would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
All right, an ordinance to provide for annual classification of officers and employees of the city of Seward, Nebraska, to create the utilities locator position, to provide for longevity pay and payment of part-time employees, to provide for a date such classifications and pay ranges of compensation shall become effective, to provide for publication in pamphlet form, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2022-4, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with the statutory rule.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Again, this is ordinance number 2022-4. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
One further note on this, so the only other change in this is a job
It's
description.
a job title change
Okay.
that just didn't match up correctly.
Thanks, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-4 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Is there our only ordinance for this evening? So only one final motion to make the ordinance part of the permanent record.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Okay, item number 5, authorization to revise financial commitment letter for the Seward interior drainage and pump station improvements project. Greg.
Yeah, we put in a grant with FEMA for federal hazard mitigation grant to redo the pump station down through the levee. This is the amount we would have to contribute to that to ultimately get, I think it's a well over $1 million project. So, and that's part of our levee accreditation process we're still undertaking and trying to finalize. And so this is the commitment letter for that, and then hopefully we can get that grant project going and get the levee or the pump system through the levee fixed up to modern standards and automated. That's the other huge element of that. So, answer any questions you have.
See the motion.
Move to authorize the letter.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Item number 6, motion to rescind resolution 2022-12, setting sewer rates based on January and February 2022 consumption for a 12-month period starting April 1st, 2022. Greg, wanna explain?
No good deed goes unpunished.
We had something.
I have to commend my staff in the billing office, Kirsten and Julie Moody, just to check, once the billing ended, I believe at March 20th approximately, they went back and ran all of the numbers in the city. And what, I think we just got hit by the moisture finally showed up. As soon as we started talking about everybody watering their lawn, and then it snowed, and then it rained, and everybody just stopped. And what we found out was on a regular basis, predominantly for residential users, your big usage out of those 3 is the first month. I don't know if it's kids home from college, you know, spouses and everybody home from school, whatever it is, but in your kind of December, January range, that's your largest of the 3, and then it tapers off, and March is always the lowest. Well, we were under the assumption that people were gonna start watering like they would in April, which is significant, and they didn't. And so Alyssa came in and saw it in my office. We had printed out every single one for 2 months and 3 months, and they painstakingly went through and compared them individually. And it was 98% of people would be hurt by what we actually did. By
We
what
don't want that.
We don't
So,
want that.
you know,
It was mind blowing.
yeah, it was, we looked at the numbers and I'm just like, this is crazy. I think we just missed the season and spring sprung right after March 20th, which is the official first day of spring.
We were trying to help.
We were, and it was a good thing to look at, and we actually sat down with the data, but ultimately, the way it ended up, 98% of the people would pay more on average if we continued to do what we did, so.
Is there any further discussion or city of a motion?
I'll make a motion to rescind the resolution 2022-12.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camperth, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Greg, report.
There's a report, there's a report in there. One of the big ones that we did undertake, and I mentioned it in our prior item, was that we had stakeholder meetings with residents that have direct access to Highway 15. For the Highway 15 reconstruction project that's slated for 2025, spring of 2024 it would start, and then it would run basically till July approximately of 2025. And so we had multiple stakeholder meetings with people that have access to it, got some good feedback. And there will be a public meeting for everyone in the community to make comment in April, late this month, held at the Civic Center, I believe, as well. And so that will be the whole community's opportunity to come in and kind of on the record give a very specific comment. But as we all know, Highway 15 is in disarray. We discussed that a good portion of that roadway is milled brick underneath, which is essentially at this point, with freeze and thaw and everything else, that brick is basically liquefying itself. And that's why the road is failing for a good portion of it. And so we will pursue through that process, and I encourage anybody interested in that project to attend that public hearing and voice your opinion on it. Obviously, I think the city can speak for ourselves. We're in support of getting that through.
What day is that?
We'll get the specifics. They haven't, they're gonna put it out as an announcement here
I
shortly.
think it's Thursday the 28th.
So, yep. With that, it's all a blur. It's just East Seward Street and,
You don't have much going on at all.
so, and just following up, I believe on April 13th, also, we will have an informational meeting at the Civic Center on the Wellness Center. So not designed to encourage anybody to vote for or against the sales tax, but to allow people to come in and kind of do a walk-in and meet at different stations to talk about design, construction, budget, those different elements, and just kind of go along and get their questions asked. There won't be any sort of formal presentation or anything, but there'll be tons of people from the Wellness Planning Committee on hand to answer questions and show some stuff off and just give people an opportunity to do that. So,
Any questions for Greg? Otherwise, we're going to motion to accept the report.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to accept the report. Please register your votes. Please hit the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camper, Copeland, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
Do we have future requests for council agenda items or administrative action?
I think we
You
have a,
both look right at me like.
no.
Weird.
I would just note that we had a previous one in regards to the, down by the baseball fields. And looking
Yes.
at parking, the traffic, we've been monitoring that. I think we are gonna formally make a recommendation to, we just gotta talk to adjacent landowner just real quick so they know what we're doing.
As long as you can get just one of them, that they can't park on both sides, I think.
Yeah, I think we
one of
just
them
continue
open.
the red all the way down to the drive into the overflow parking.
Yes.
That, somebody always parks a giant SUV there. I don't know how that always happens at every ballgame we ever have in town, but that just kills the
'Cause it
sight
just
line and the
seems like
flow.
there's practice going on
Yep.
or something else that, it's pretty tight in there.
We've had plenty of opportunity to see examples, and so I think our recommendation will be just to extend that red line for the fire hydrant all the way around to the drive for the overflow parking. And see if that opens it up a little bit more for us.
Sounds great, thank you.
So if we're good, we'll move on to announcement of upcoming events. Jonathan Jank, welcome.
Yes.
He is here.
Make
He
him-
made
make him do it.
He was here.
He came for a
He was
reason.
here.
He
was
ready to do
back.
it. I literally just said that. Actually, Jacob has handouts for you. A couple of quick notes. We have the cleanup day, and we have all the details here. We really appreciate the partnership with the city of Seward, being at the Horseshoe. Great partnership, which just encourage the community at large to come out. Great time to clean up the community and the county.
Can't believe
We
Jonathan.
have a hazardous waste grant this year with Four Corners Health Department, and so you'll see me suited and booted in a hazmat suit, which is pretty exciting. But would encourage you to come out. If there are volunteer groups that are looking for ways to serve the community, would ask that they reach out to our office to participate, because it's wild from 8 to noon. Let's see, we have our annual business anniversaries luncheon on the 28th, celebrating businesses from 5 to 150 years and everything in between. If you're interested in joining us, please call our office to RSVP. And let's see, lastly, the Seward County Gives Day. If you're not familiar with what's going on there, great opportunity to support 24 different charitable causes across the county. There's a number of Seward-related projects that will be included in that. So May 1st through the 5th. 5th is kind of the culmination of that day. Good opportunity to encourage generosity throughout the county. So if you're not familiar, you can just Google Seward County Gives Day and learn more about it. With that, that's all I have. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Jonathan. With that, we have a strategy session. Is there a motion?
Hold on, let me just confirm. Kelly, do you have any information on it? Did you? Okay. It was sent to him.
10 minutes.
I'm just making sure.
So I move that the city council go into closed session with mayor, city administrator, city clerk, Jonathan Jank, along with the city attorney for the protection of the public interest, and to discuss real estate interests at the commercial rail campus development area, and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance for a period not to exceed 30 minutes.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Good,
Motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 8-0.
The council is voting to go into closed session for protection of the public interest and to discuss real estate interests at the commercial rail campus development area, to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance. We're in closed session. Thank
No
everyone.
formal action will be taken.
No formal action will be taken.